Back here at Autosport International 2017, joined now by Alex Simpson. I'm going to have to try and reel this off. Team manager of Apex Racing UK, Apex Academy, as well as owner of Apex Racing TV, and about a million other things as well. Alex, good to have you here.
Yeah, good to be here.
So let's start with a week ago, shall we? It's probably the easiest place to start. The Visa Vegas eRace. You had two of you guys there. They did have a bad outing. Talk us through not only the race itself, but the ability to really take some of your guys to be represented at one of the top levels of sim racing.
Well, the event itself was, amazing. Great to go to Vegas, and thanks to Formula E for putting that on. As for obviously the race, it didn't quite go according to plan, up into third place before an accident put Graham out of the race, so gutted for that, and Patrick unfortunately had that mishap on the last turn. So, well, I think the main thing is the guys come out of that actually all smiles, great exposure for sim racing as well on that kind of platform. So, and they still won. Just getting there, they were winners. I mean, to walk away with $20,000 each just for turning up. We did some amazing things when we were out there. So helicopter rides through the Grand Canyon, and just to be in Vegas was awesome. So, but I just think from a team point of view, we just want to see more of that again. So when you start to come to events like these, big LAN parties and things like that, we'd like to think that's the way forward for like esports in sim racing. So, but. Yeah, I'm ready to go back again.
Awesome. And on top of that, of course, your team is one of the biggest, not only in terms of members, but in terms of success on iRacing today. Got you guys represented not only in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, also in the Blancpain GT Series. I heard you're taking something like 6 teams to Daytona next weekend. So much more. The key question is, from former team manager to team manager, how do you keep control of all the guys?
Well, I think there's a bit of a misconception with the numbers that we actually have. So our full team, which is Apex Racing UK, is the blue car. Anyone in the green obviously are part of the academy. So they kind of do their own thing, but they're nice enough to put our livery on and promote our sponsors. So, the sponsors are happy with that. But, we help them out as much as we can and try and develop them as drivers. So there's a lot of cars out there, but they're not actually Apex Racing UK. But so I think as far as Daytona goes, I think there's only one UK car going, and I think like in the Pro Series there's only 3 cars in there as well. So
only 3 cars, Some teams would like give their left arm to have 1 car in the Pro Series. I mean, the way it's looking then, so you're going to have potentially 5 drivers in this year's World Championship Series?
Well, actually, I do think we'll be up to 8 again.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, Jamie's looking really strong at the moment, currently leading Pro Series. Gutted for Marcus because he had a faultless championship so far, one little mistake at Spa, and the way the drop weeks land, of course, he has to count that low points where every race so far has been sort of 250, 300 points. So gutted for him that he's got to count that. And Sebastian really just hasn't got time at the moment. So I'm not sure what Seb's going to do. It looks possible that he might miss out on the top 10, which will be a right shame because he's an amazing talent. As we all know, we've seen it in the past when he has the time. So let's hope he'll be back next year.
That's an interesting one with Seb, actually, because he's always one of those drivers that if he's going to run in the World Championship Series, you've always got to think he has the opportunity not only to get podiums, but potentially to get a race victory. And of course, last year we saw Yoni Tamala get himself that breakthrough victory. If he does make himself into World Championship Series in 2017, do you think this could be the year that we see not only Seb, but maybe other guys in your team getting their first victory?
Well, I certainly think it's time that we stepped up to that level. So there's a massive push behind the scenes. We're certainly looking like we can compete with Mac and Coanda in the Pro Series, and I think we've got drivers of equal ability and maybe some that are just a little bit quicker as well already in that World Championship seat. So I think next year could be a really exciting season for the fans to watch it, because I think between us, Coanda, Redline, Yoni for Inex as well, I think it could be a really, really tight championship up the top, lots of winners. That's what we want to see, of course.
And of course, you've got to add Radicals into that mix as well, because I mean, traditionally, they've been your biggest competition. It always seems to be a point, Apex Radicals on the grid. It seems not the same when you get to the finish line. But I mean, I'm just trying to work back now. This is at least your third year running in World Championship Series. And how do you think that progression's been from your first team's appearance up to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, the first year it was just the three of us, really, and as a team we were young. I mean, we'd only been doing iRacing and sim racing for the best part of 12 months at that point, so the goal was just to obviously get into that World Championship, so we achieved that. And I think from there, really, we just obviously built our team, made sure that we got drivers on board that obviously knew how to set the car up, people were a little bit more focused on that, some data people behind the scenes just to try and help us out on there. So I think getting our knowledge and our understanding of the car, the way the sim works, all the physics, is kind of where we've been a little bit lacking when you look at, say, like your Gregor, who's been doing sim racing for best part of 18 years, knows iRacing like the back of his hand. So I think those are the things that we've got to sort of improve if that we're going to take it up. And you can see the progression we've made over the 3 years. So every year we take a step up.
And how important do you think we move and the transition to McLaren was in that? Because you guys kind of got yourself a bit of a head start having drivers in the Pro Series compared to some others, the likes of Redline, for example, who really the first time they drove that car competitively was when they got themselves into the World Championship Series.
Well, I think what you could see with the start of last season, and we come out of the blocks really quick, obviously Sebastian with second place, the grid was pretty stacked in that top 10 with Apex cars as well, and I think that's really our strong point. When we switch up to cars that are brand new or haven't had much testing or something like that, we're on the ball pretty quickly. And then obviously those bits of experiences that you need sort of take over, and we just dropped back off just a tenth or two. It wasn't much, but it's enough to make a difference in the race. So I think that's definitely a strong point of ours, and we just need to build on that, I think, moving forward.
Let's talk about you in relation to one of the things you just last said. And a tenth of a second at some of the races this season, in the last season in the World Championship Series, could be the difference between being P5 or P15. When you've only got yourself essentially 2 flying laps in qualifying, how hard is it to get the perfect lap at that top level?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I remember Suzuka quite well. Suzuka was a really close qualifying. Obviously, Moga got pole there. And I did the first lap, and I think I was 3/10 off of pole. And I knew I'd made 3/10 worth of mistake in turn 1 alone. Nailed that on the second lap, and then the pressure's on, because you're like, well, this is on the ball going in. Picked up another 1/10.5 going through there. I was like, this is really, really good. Got that final chicane. Nothing like a bit of pressure there. It's whether or not you attack that corner or you take it safe. And but I attacked it and got the off track. So
in some ways, it's not even the final chicane. If you get that right down that hill, if you put the power band just a tiny bit too early, it's coming out of there. There's that horrible little dip that just gets that car a little bit loose. And of course, the torque coming out of that car through there is pretty extreme. Get a tailwind through there, it's treacherous. At the same time, I mean, I remember that you qualified once for a top split of the Indy 500, which I actually say is one of the toughest qualifications of any race in sim racing, because it is so close up top, and many people will think, especially here in the UK, it's just 4 laps of going flat out at 230 miles an hour, but an inch offline at Indy is 100th, and 100th is the difference between being in and out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first year we did it, obviously we had some pretty good success. Cam won one of the splits, and we were running sort of top 5 all the time. I need to really thank yourself and sort of Brandon Trainer. You really taught me how to set that car up and how to drive it. Without you guys, I wouldn't be anywhere on that. So, and last year we had obviously a good run. Didn't qualify quite as high, but I don't think we quite put as much time into it. But we're still happy that we could get into that top split. But race pace was on point again, and we just drove through that field. So, just think we needed another 20-30 laps though.
Yeah, and I often talk about transferability of skills, and actually, you guys run in a lot more than just the World Championship Series or the Pro Series. And I think, how do you think that helps the guys being able to deal with that intense race pressure on a more regular basis compared to some of the other teams that you do only see them run maybe 16 races a season?
Well, I think it does help swapping around a bit as well, but what helps a lot of guys to sort of adapt and deal with pressure and things like that is we have quite a good working relationship with Fabio Martins from De Rose Method, and he's always in our forum. We've got a special section that they can ask any questions, so he gives us a lot of tips and advice about sort of dealing with like the emotional pressure when you're trying to put a hot lap in, or if you're leading a race and things like that. So it's amazing that he's come on board, and I know he does a lot with a lot of other sim racers as well. So, but yeah, that helps us out big time.
And in terms of other things that you're competing in right now, Neo, obviously.
We're actually not doing Neo.
Oh, sorry. See, I'm not commentating Neo this year, so I'm just assuming that you're doing Neo. But well, your next event then is next weekend, 24 Hours of Daytona. You've been there before. You often seem to have either fantastic run of fortunes or miserable. There's no middle ground really for you.
No, I don't know what it is about the team. It's either it's great or it's it's absolute garbage, I'm afraid. So, but yeah, that'll be a good one. I mean, we're particularly looking out for obviously the BSR Formula Renault that's kicking off next week, and that's going to be a great one as well. So we've put out a pretty good team for that. It's looking good. And the BSR, obviously Kia Pro Series as well. Again, it's another one that we actually focus on. We went out and actually got some drivers to build a team based on that were just dedicated for that car. So I think that's good. We're going to have a couple of cars in the Blancpain GT World Championship again. So good to have that second car in there to help support Antoine and Sebastian in there. And then of course the World Championship. We'll be keeping our eye out for any other sort of esport events that are going on as well, because fingers crossed there'll be a few more through the year, and we'll be over those like a rash.
And it's also worth noting this year the fact that the World Championship Series has gone down to 12 races, and there's no real clashes in terms of scheduling with that and Blancpain. Do you think that's going to help your team in Blancpain this year?
I think it will. I think what will help our team more is that second car coming through, because last year we had the one car, but we were really focused on the McLaren and the Grand Prix World Championship. So the testing time was literally the morning of the race or maybe the night before the race. And when you're up against some of the best GT drivers in the world, you're just not going to compete. And I think that showed in our performance. We were sort of floating around sort of 10th to 15th place, which is not a bad result considering the time we put in. But I think next year when we're going to have a dedicated team solely working on the GT, that's going to really help the other team up as well. And I can see them competing a lot higher up next year.
And final thing to talk about really is the broadcasting side of things. Currently broadcasting, amongst other things, the Pro Series of Road Racing, as well as BSR Series. So talk us a little bit then about what you're doing over there at the moment.
Yeah, so on Epic Racing TV, we've had a big flux of series come in, which has been great. And it's great for sim racing again, that more of the leagues want to get involved with yourselves as well. And the Pro Series has been awesome. It's just great to get that. It's been the last couple of Pro Series have been amazing. Yeah, the last year's was awesome. This one currently going is great, and for us it's great to get on the Pro Series as well and show what we can do. So I think this year we're just going to push it even more, just try and get a few more series on and see how more we can develop and what else we can do. So I think end game needs to be the kind of broadcast that we saw the other weekend at the Vegas race with the studio and the live audience. I'm pretty sure we can do better graphics and things like that, and comms and stuff. But,
yes.
But we won't go there.
The comms was good. I have to give it to Jack. I mean, Jack comes from a sim racing background. I have the world of respect to him. Him and Dario did a good job.
Yeah, both of them did, but I think the problem was they had limited information.
Yes, and that's always the thing. I mean, you and I both know this, that you can only, as a commentator, as a broadcaster, you can only be as good as the research that you do. And that partially comes down to individuals working, and I always tell my team, go and understand the races before you start commentating it. But at the same time, if you've only got limited information to work on, it does affect the quality of the broadcast you can do.
Yeah, of course, this is where iRacing is so strong on that part. Yeah. We have all the live timings available to us as sort of cameramen and directors and things like that, so we can follow the action, switch it out, and the replays are really easy to do. So I think, something that mixes in what we saw with like a live stage or a live studio that's done properly. And we've seen attempts obviously in the past, but yeah, getting it done properly.
An actual booth, not a virtual one. Okay.
Will be amazing. I think that's got to be the next level. Don't know quite how we're going to go about doing that, but yeah, sometime in the future.
Yeah, and there was a point I was going to make here, and I've forgotten it, so I'm going to come back to it, I think, in a moment's time. But in some ways, we talk about the broadcasting, the information we have available here on iRacing, and it's actually interesting. Having been to Road Atlanta earlier on this year, actually we have more information than what you often get at a racetrack. I mean, even at IMSA level, they don't have that granular level detail. Of course, we get to do things like determine camera angles, pretty much anything that we want. Also, the depth of timing isn't the sort of thing that necessarily you'll get in real motorsports. So in some ways, we're very privileged over here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all they're really seeing is the feed that they get in, what's out the window, and the live timings, you know. So there's only so much information they can grab from it, where we have the beauty, like you say, of just hopping around, seeing whatever we want. Some of the other co-commentators can be looking at different things and bring our attention to those as well. So, you know, some people will say, oh, well, sometimes they're not commentating on what's being shown, but actually I think that's a good thing because we can swap that up really quickly. Okay, it might take a couple of seconds, but at least we don't miss as much action.
Precisely.
I think people always say, oh, you missed this, you missed that, but when you look at like a real Grand Prix or a real endurance race, they miss far more on TV.
Yeah.
But the commentators will never allude to that. And that's the difference.
Yeah, and when you've got 50 guys in a 40-minute race, there's always going to be that level of action. Sometimes it is difficult to keep up, and actually that's when sometimes sim racing does have its advantages. Before we let you go, Alex, floor's yours. Anyone you want to give a hello to?
Yeah, well, just a big shout out to all of the Apex Racing crew, Academy and TV, and all the sponsors, so Computers PC Systems, JCL Sim Racing, Leo Bodner, Sim Steering, Precision Sim Engineering, the list goes on.
Yeah, he doesn't actually have a proper list in front of him. I'm waiting. One day we'll actually have someone read off a list from a script there. Alex, fantastic to have you here at Autosport International. Don't forget, you can keep with us all weekend long on iRacing Radio, powered by RaceSpot. We are at stall 6510. Tweet us using the hashtag iRacing Radio.